What if I told you that to build a high-performing, successful team and a thriving organisation, more than training and budgets and strategies and so on, the number one thing that sets world-class companies apart from the others is people feel psychologically safe. So in today's video, I'm going to talk to you about psychological safety. So what do we mean when we say psychological safety? It means that people in that organisation feel safe to raise any concerns, to come up with different ideas, to voice their opinion in meetings, all without the fear of embarrassment or rejection or being called out for it in some way. That they just feel really psychologically safe enough to be able to share their inner thoughts. So why does psychological safety matter in organisations? It's where innovation lives, for a start. If you want to innovate, if you want to do things that your competitors aren't doing, if you want to stand out from the crowd and do things that are very different, you need people to voice their opinions. You need that diversity of thought that comes from breaking down those echo chambers and having different voices in the room. People won't give you their unusual or a bit out there ideas unless you make them feel safe enough to do so. So that's reason number one, it's innovation. The second reason why psychological safety at work really matters, it helps with your employee engagement and retention. So simply put, people will want to stay in organisations where they feel heard, they feel truly listened to, and they feel like their opinion matters. Numerous studies have shown that people are far more engaged in organisations where they get to feel that way. So that's another reason why it's really important. And the third reason why psychological safety is super important at work is it reduces stress for leaders. Because in those sorts of organisations where there is that environment, people tend to raise problems or issues, whether it could be with their peers, it could be a client-facing issue, it could be a project issue. If people raise those concerns really early doors, you can actually tackle it sooner and it's easier to deal with. Whereas the opposite side of that is organisations where people don't speak up because they're scared or they're embarrassed. They fear humiliation. They won't tell you that those things are a problem until it's too late. And then it becomes your problem, a problem for leadership to then have to do damage limitation. And that's not a situation that you would ever want yourself to be in. So those are the three reasons why psychological safety in any organisation is really important. Now let's talk about how do we make people feel psychologically safe. Well, the first way is to be your real self, to show your vulnerability yourself. It could be that you're a leader, it could be that you're a member of the team. But in your next team meeting, just show some vulnerability. If there's something that perhaps you're struggling with, or maybe there's a recent mistake that you made, maybe just talk about it and just say on the meeting that I actually don't know what I'm doing with this. Guys, can someone help me? Show that vulnerability because it encourages other people to do the same. The next one is move away from naming and shaming or blaming anybody in your organisation. If a mistake has been made, then in your next team meeting, instead of saying, hey, who's to blame for that? Did you know that's cost us this many pounds? Why don't you instead just flip it and say, okay guys, this happened earlier in the week. How can we do it better next time? What do we now know that we need to avoid next time? And make it much more of a positive conversation as opposed to doing the naming and blaming game. And thirdly, in your team meetings, make sure that every voice is heard. Make sure that people feel like they can contribute. So in any team dynamic, you're going to have some people that are really vocal and they like to talk a lot, but you'll have maybe some introverts in your team that process their thoughts differently. They might take longer to get to a conclusion, but they have plenty to say, but actually by the time they get to that point, the conversation's moved on. So hold space for people to be able to contribute. So when we're speaking in meetings and you notice that somebody hasn't had a chance to have a say, then, address it and say, hey John, what are your thoughts on the matter? And encourage that person And if that person doesn't know or feels like they need more thinking time, then you can just say, well, if anybody thinks of anything after the meeting, just drop me a line and let me know. Keep those doors of communication open, because people respond and communicate very differently. So that's another way that we can create that. Another way that we can make people feel psychologically safe at work is to recognise contributions. So acknowledge where people have done a really good job, even when it hasn't gone right. Acknowledge the effort that's gone into it. You know, hey John, great work on that project. I know we didn't quite get it over the line, but the things that we learnt from it, the things that you've achieved that we can carry forward into the next project, I think that's great. So make people feel part of something bigger. Also is to be consistent as a leader, okay? To be very consistent and make your team know that you have their backs, okay? They feel safe around you because you will argue a point for them. You will have their backs if something goes wrong. Show that you support them and always follow through on what you meant to do. So perhaps this week, think of somewhere where you've promised something to somebody. It might have been to arrange a mentor for them. It might have been to give them some feedback, and maybe you've forgotten or it's just got left behind on your to-do list. Follow through with it. Be consistent and be the person that people can rely on, that they know that if they come to you with something, that you will take action, you will listen, you'll hear them. So there we go, creating psychological safety. It's not just a nice to have in the workplace, it is the glue that holds really top performing organisations and teams together. It makes us communicate with each other better, we collaborate better, we bounce ideas around and get all creative better. Make it that culture in your organisation where not just everyone else, but even yourself, show your vulnerability, share ideas, and make sure every voice in that room is heard and given an opportunity. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for further videos.